اهلا بيكم في كايرو دار. النهارده ان شاء الله هنبتدي مع شابتر 2 Reproduction in Living Organisms. الشابتر ده بيكلمنا عن نقط كتير. هو تقريبا شابتر كبير فيه ديتيلز كتيره، لازم نخلي بالنا من كل كلمه فيها. هنبدا دلوقتي نشوف what is the importance of reproduction. ليه living organisms دي بتعمل reproduction؟ طبعا احنا نعرف ان reproduction is very important for the continuity of the living organisms on the earth, because reproduction increases the number of individuals, and the increasing the number of individuals that replace the individuals which may die. But living organisms can live normally without reproduction. So the reproduction act as a vital activity, but that's not act as a vegetative activities. Vegetative activities, the activities that keep the life of the living organism. At the respiration, at the nutrition, at the excretion, great number of the vital activities get carried out by the living organisms. But the reproduction act as a kind of biological activities that keep the species of the living organism or protect the living organism against extinction. So the reproduction is help in the continuity of the life of the living organisms on the earth, but the living organism can live without the reproductive system. So the reproduction is not act as the activities that keep the life of the individual, but keep the kind of the living organism or the species against extinction. So the rate of reproduction or the capacity of reproduction في living organisms عندها عدد كبير جدا من البرودكشن او الريت اوف ريبرودكشن. في ليفنج اورجانيزمز الريت اوف ريبرودكشن عندها قليل. ليه ليفنج اورجانيزمز بتنجب كتير وبتنجب قليل؟ دي احنا بنسميها the capacity of reproduction. Capacity of reproduction depends on three factors. The first factor is the surrounding environment where the living organism live. If the living organism live in the aquatic environment where the living organism and the offspring exposed to great danger and great external factors that may affect the life of the living organism, so the rate of reproduction in the aquatic environment greater than that of the terrestrial environment, and also the dangers to which the organism is exposed. If the living organism exposed to many dangerous situations, that means that will decrease the number of the individuals. Therefore, if the living organism exposed to dangerous, that means that increase the rate of reproduction than the others in the living organisms which is not exposed to danger. Therefore, the parasites and the primitive living organisms exposed to dangerous, so they increase or the rate of reproduction become greater than that of the others. But the third factor is the nature and the duration of the living organism. living organism ده بيعيش قد ايه؟ طب لو هو بيعيش فترة طويلة يبقى معنى كده انه الريت of reproduction will decrease. But the living organisms with the short life, that means that need to increase the rate of reproduction, that to protect the species against extinction. Therefore, the ancestors that succeed to survive, they produce great number of individuals or great rate of reproduction. But the others as the dinosaurs that extincted due to decreasing the rate of reproduction. If the rate of reproduction become greater than this rate, that means the individual will survive with the great number. But if this rate become greater than that of the rate of reproduction, that means the living organism or the organism will decrease the number of this species until extinction takes place. So that's the capacity of reproduction. Or if I ask you, what about the factors that affect the rate of reproduction? That's called the capacity of reproduction as the environment as dangerous where the living organism exposed, and also the duration of the living organism. What about the methods or types of reproduction? In general, the types of reproduction, two main types. The first is called sexual reproduction, but the second is the asexual reproduction. The sexual reproduction takes place by two parents, male and female. So the offspring that produced as a result of sexual reproduction will differ from each other and also from the parents. But the asexual reproduction, that means the production of individuals from single parent only. So all the offspring will be similar to each other and similar to the parent. Therefore, there is a number of advantages of reproduction sexually and also advantages of the asexual reproduction. But the living organisms that can carry out both types of reproduction, sexual and asexual, in the same life cycle, and they alternated with each other, that act as a third type of reproduction, which is called the alternation of generations. The alternation of generations, where the life cycle of the living organism has two generations. The first is produced as a result of sexual reproduction that alternated with the living organism, or a generation that produced as a result of asexual reproduction. So the alternation of generation can get the advantage of both sexual and asexual reproduction. The first type of the reproduction, which is the asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, that means it is the isolation of the body part as a spore, cell, or tissue or group of cells. So the group of cells or the cell can grow into new organism that's similar to the organism's part has been isolated. That means if you get a piece of living organism and this piece of living organism grow and they change into new organism, the new organism will be similar to the parent or the single parent. So that's act as a asexual reproduction, which takes place by single parent only or one parent. Therefore, the features of the following generations remains in the same, even if the surrounding conditions change. So the living organisms that produced as a result of asexual reproduction, they similar to each other, there is no differentiation, so they can't adapt with the change in the environmental conditions. So the asexual reproduction depends on a certain type of division, which is called the mitosis division. In the case of the mitosis division, the mother cell divided to produce two cells similar to each other and also similar to the mother cell. Therefore, there is no genetic variation and there is no differentiation of the offspring that produced as a result of mitosis. So all kinds of asexual reproduction that takes place by mitosis division, so there is no the advantage of the meiosis at the production of new individual, the presence of genetic variation, living organisms in the sexual reproduction can adapt to the change in environmental condition, and also we will carry out or make a comparison between the sexual and the asexual reproduction. What about the types of asexual reproduction? The types of asexual reproduction carried out by a great number of types, but we will explain 6 types of asexual reproduction. The first is called the binary fission. Binary fission means the cell divided into two cells similar to each other, but the mother cell will disappear. That takes place in the amoeba, the paramecium, the euglena, or that takes place in the unicellular organisms only. But the second kind of asexual reproduction is called the budding. The budding is a production of protrusion or lateral protrusion can grow to form small living cell that may attach to the mother cell or separate it and live independently of the mother cell. That takes place in yeast fungus, takes place in sponges and hydra. The third kind of asexual reproduction is called regeneration. Regeneration means part of the body Well, if you cut the body parts into many parts, each part can grow to produce complete individual that act as a kind of asexual reproduction, because the number of individuals produced from the pieces of the mother part or the mother body that act as a kind of asexual reproduction, because it takes place by single parent only, and that takes place in the sponges, the hydra, the sea star, and also in the planaria. But what about the fourth kind of asexual reproduction? The fourth kind is called sporogamy. Sporogamy means the production by spores, or production of great number of individuals by the formation of spores. Sporogamy means spore formation or the presence of spores. كلمة spore يعني جرثومة، يبقى living organism ده يعمل جراثيم كتيرة وكل واحدة تعمل living organism، ده بنقول عليه sporogamy. ده بيحصل في البريد مولد، mushroom, some algae, and some ferns. What about the parthenogenesis? It is the fifth kind of asexual reproduction. Parthenogenesis is the production of, or the ability of the unfertilized ovum to develop to produce complete individual without fertilization, that may take place naturally at that in the honeybee and aphid insect, or may take place artificially as that which may take place in some worms, crustacea, amphibia, and many living organisms. What about the last type of asexual reproduction? The last type is called the tissue culture. Tissue culture means we can get a piece of the living organism and put the piece of living organism in a nutritive media. So the piece of living organism developed to produce complete plant root, stem, and leaf. So the tissue culture may take place as that in the experiments of the carrot plant. What about the first kind of asexual reproduction? It's the binary fission. The nucleus of the amoeba is divided into two nuclei. Each nucleus surrounds itself with the little amounts of cytoplasm and the plasma membrane. So the mother cell can grow after that. The nucleus divided into two nuclei. Each nucleus surrounds itself with the cytoplasm and the plasma membrane, and that produce two cells, each similar to each other and also similar to the mother cell. So the binary fission that can take place during the suitable conditions only. But during the unfavorable conditions or the unsuitable condition, the amoeba surround itself with the thick coat that keep the living tissue or the living cell that against the unfavorable conditions. Therefore, that's form the amoeba cell surround itself with the thick coat or the chitinous coat, so it's called the cyst. Cysts that protect the amoeba against the unsuitable or the unfavorable conditions. At the increasing the temperature, the presence of impurities in the water where the amoeba live, at the presence of the poisonous substance or toxic substance, increasing the temperature, the acidity, the alkalinity, the absence of food, the dryness or absence of water. So the amoeba can surround itself with the chitinous thick coat to protect it against the unfavorable conditions. But during the improvement of the surrounding conditions, the nucleus inside the cyst divided many times to produce great number of nuclei, each surround itself with the thin layer of cytoplasm and plasma membrane, and liberation takes place of the cyst, and that produce great number of amoeba that act as a kind of asexual reproduction, because it takes place by single cell, which is called the cyst, or the binary fission during the presence of the favorable conditions. favorable conditions يعني ظروف مناسبة، في فود كتير، في conditions كتيرة، في كمية فود دخلت السيل أميبا سيل كتيرة، حصل لها جروس بقت كبيرة، تبدأ النيوكليوس تتقسم السيتوبلازم بقت two cells similar to each other and similar to the mother cell. That takes place by mitosis. The second kind of asexual reproduction is called the budding. Budding occurs in the unicellular organisms but also takes place in the multicellular organisms. Budding in unicellular organisms, that means protrusion takes place or lateral protrusion takes place from lateral side of the cell. After that, the nucleus is divided into two nuclei by mitosis division, one of the two nuclei migrate to the protrusion and the contraction increase of the protrusion, and that form small cells attached to the mother pig cell. That's made the bud grow attached to the mother cell to form a colony, or may separate it and live independently from the mother cell. That's act as a budding in unicellular. But what about the budding in multicellular? In multicellular, there is a certain kind of tissue inside the body of the living organisms that calls the interstitial cells. The interstitial cells are responsible for the protrusion of the bud. The bud acts as a very small living organism attached to the mother cell. After that, the living organism or the very small bud can separate it from the mother cell and give and live independently from the mother cell. That may take place in the sponges, that takes place in hydra, and both of the sponges and the hydra act as a multicellular organism, so the bud takes place from the interstitial cells. So what's the difference between the budding and the binary fission? In the binary fission, that takes place by the mother cell, which is divided into two cells. The mother cell disappear because it divided into two cells similar to each other. المذر سيل الكبيرة اتقسمت اتنين، ما بقاش فيه المذر سيل، علشان كده بنعتبر المذر سيل disappear in the binary fission. But in the budding, the big cell is the mother cell, but the bud is very small cell attached to the mother cell, or very small body attached to the mother's body. The resulting cells that produced as a binary fission, they similar to each other. But in the case of the budding, the cells are, the new cell is a very small that attached to the mother cell, so they are not equal in size. The binary fission takes place in unicellular organisms only, but the budding takes place in unicellular and multicellular. The binary fission takes place in amoeba, paramecium, bacteria, primitive algae, but in the case of the budding, that takes place in yeast, hydra, and sponges. That's the end of this part, my dear students. Thank you very much. Goodbye and good luck.